Okay, today we're talking about writing the summary for the debate, and this is your central paper. So if you were wondering whether or not this project would produce any sort of essay assignment, that's what we're talking about today. And you can double check on the class Moodle site, but this summary should be due sometime next week. I can't remember specifically what day. Here's your assignment, and this should be printed in your Students Debate project package. It's also posted in web form on the Students Debate site. Write a summary of your argument in no fewer than 400 words. By the way, don't forget, word count does not count. I don't use word count to count titles, name, heading, header, anything, works cited, anything like that. This is just your regular text. From the first sentence of your essay down to the last sentence, that is all I count. The summary must present the argument of the Toulmin model, which you've already completed, in regular prose. That means in regular sentences. Okay, prose equals sentences, paragraphs. Regular prose with added detail. That added detail, of course, will be your research. You submit this summary in hard copy form with an e-file submission. So if that e-file submission is a Google Docs submission, great. That should work pretty effectively. If you want to attach it to an email, that should work fine as well. Assignment is due in advance of the debate. It's worth 16 points. So it's a fairly large portion of the debate, the 16-point score. Any quick questions about just the assignment itself? Haven?
Does it like be per group? Like per
No, each of you writes your own.
Okay.
Good question. It's not on there. Yeah.
Is the Toulmin model
Claim, warrant, grounds. That's your Toulmin model. Yeah. So basically, you can consider that, and I'll talk about it today, but you consider that kind of like an outline of this paper. You'll have to do some work explaining your warrant in a paragraph. You'll have to do some work explaining your grounds in a paragraph. So consider that to be a very rough outline.
So do we like?
I'll tell you what, Amma, if you continue to be confused in about 20 minutes, then ask me that question again. But I think I'm about to explain everything that you're hoping to know. Any further just detail-oriented questions about this? No? Then we focus on the model example that I have, which, don't forget, focuses on the resolution, the United States federal government should illegalize smoking. What I'm about to do is take you through a paper. The model example is available online. I will take you through a paper and show you exactly how I wrote it piece by piece. If you follow this formula, you should be fine. I don't need creativity. I don't need you reinventing the wheel. What I need you doing is arguing something effectively and clearly with supporting detail from research. That's all I need. So don't worry about mixing things up. And I want to emphasize this very clearly. At the sophomore level, I teach formula. I don't teach creativity. I teach formula. And if you follow formulas, your writing will have a firm structure. And then once you develop that structure, then you can start being creative in your junior and senior years. But right now, just follow formula. So you should be reassured at the end of this lesson that you know exactly how to write this paper. This is my introduction. This is the first portion of my essay. And take a look at what I've got up there in green. Introduction to the warrant. I start with my warrant. I start with the value that I'm upholding for that day. Courtney, remind me, what is your group arguing?
That they should keep the
16-year-old age limit. And what is your warrant? Are we talking about road safety? Okay, so you start talking about road safety. You don't even start talking about 16-year-olds yet. You start off talking about road safety. Bailey, what about your group? What are you folks arguing?
cell phones.
Cell phones. And what's your warrant? Cell phones in school.
Pennsylvania schools should maintain positive.
You're going to start talking about positive student morale. You're going to talk about how it feels to be a student in high school before you even get to cell phones. Okay, so all of you focus on your warrant first. Take a look at mine. The preamble to the Constitution of the United States declares that the document intends to, and here's my quotation, form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. One can easily see that the United States keeps a military and police force to provide for the common defense, and that its courts establish justice and secure the blessings of liberty. But what about the general welfare? Today, The federal government supports the welfare of the people through many initiatives, including funding and direction for education, social welfare programs, and public health protections. Because of the preamble's charge, the United States government must protect its citizens from public health threats. Do you see I'm speaking generally just about what the Constitution requires the government to do? Protect people. And I narrow that a little bit to talking about public health threats. I say, yeah, you know what? It does military and police. Yes, it does courts. But we also have to talk, and it does education, but we also talk today about health. I'm talking generally about my warrant, and I narrow it down to health, because today I'm going to be talking about a smoking ban. But nowhere in here do you see the word smoking. I don't start talking about smoking. I start by talking about general moral obligations of the U.S. federal government. Philip, what's your group arguing?
Driver's education in public schools.
Driver's education in public schools. What's your warrant?
I don't know.
Amma, what's your warrant? I know, that's your resolution. What's your warrant? Why?
Oh,
All right, Corinne, what are you arguing? Speak up, Corinne. Okay, assign less homework. What's the warrant? Why should we teachers assign less homework? Come on, folks, you're killing me. You should know your Toulmin model inside and out. You should have it memorized at this point because it is the backbone of your argument. Adriana? Yes, you're arguing the arts education, the fine arts, right?
yeah, because studies prove that it enhances creativity and broadens the mind.
So your warrant is basically saying that schools should make sure that people are fully rounded?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what you want to talk about is being a fully rounded person. You don't even have to start talking about schools. You can just talk about how cool it is to be an adult in this world who understands a lot of different areas of life. Not just the sciences and mathematics, not just working with your hands, not just domestic skills, but also the fine arts. And you could talk about that just generally, and you won't even talk about school at the beginning. You'll get to school. Amma. To save money, educational efficiency? Is that what you're talking about? Or is it personal efficiency? Are you talking about, okay, then you might talk something grandly philosophical about how our local and state governments should make life a little bit more efficient for people. Like the entire purpose of government is to do what? Okay, protect us, sure, but also just to make our lives more efficient. And you could talk generally, Amma, in those terms about the entire warrant as a grand kind of moral principle. Notice how big I'm drawing. I'm talking about the Constitution and the preamble. I'm talking about the very foundation of U.S. federal government. I haven't said a word about smoking. Now, as soon as I say this, and Jessica Haven, if you're just suggesting yours, I'll get to you. If you have a question for clarification, I'll get to that now. But if you just have ideas, I'll get to those later. I know, as soon as I say this, that I'm guaranteed next week to pick up an affirmative summary that starts with your claim, that starts with your resolution. Don't. You don't see me say a thing about smoking. Don't start with your resolution. Start with your warrant. Now, there's a shift. I'm ready to start talking specifically. I talked generally about my warrant, about the obligations of the U.S. federal government. Now I'm about to get to smoking. These threats, what kind of threats was I referring to? Public health threats. Thank you very much. These threats come in many forms. Diseases and pollution cause illness and death. Corporations damage the environment and the citizens living in it. And some manufacturers sell products known to be harmful. Chief among dangerous products in the 21st century is tobacco. And now I've reached my specific subject, but notice that I have not yet stated my resolution or my claim. I'm getting there. When students say, man, I can't fill 400 words, are you crazy? Look at that. I haven't even stated my idea yet, and I've already got about 200. But what I've stated is important because it's part of my Toulmin model. And that's why I was saying to Amma earlier in the class that your Toulmin model is basically an outline. I've taken one statement and I've squeezed about 200 words out of that one statement in the Toulmin model. And now I've got my main idea. In natural language, by the way, you don't feel afraid to rewrite your resolution. If your resolution sounds too technical, doesn't sound conversational, don't be afraid to rewrite it. If the United States government wishes to keep its promise to its citizens, it must illegalize smoking. The promise, of course, is the warrant. Promise to provide for the general health. It must illegalize smoking. This is basically my first paragraph. I want to go over it really quickly again. I'm introducing the warrant, the general idea, without talking about my specific point. Then I make a transition from my general to my specific, and at the end I state my resolution. And now I've introduced this resolution, and you should understand very clearly why I support what I support. Because I've already done half the work of arguing before it even hits. My original claim was the United States federal government should illegalize smoking. These two sentences are basically expressing the same idea, but the top one was modified a little bit so it could flow with the paragraph better. So like I said, don't be afraid to modify that sentence if you need to in order to make it flow with the rest of the paragraph.